let's touch on multiverses. All right, so the first thing is this is the confusing bit, right? On the one hand, in the Vedas, of course, you have Maha Vishnu that is breathing in and out from the pores of his skin, and each pore is delivering this universe, and as he breathes in, he sucks all those universes back into his pores. As he breathes out, these universes are being born again, and each one is a lifetime of the universe. And there's many of them. There's millions of them. Actually, billion. And so someone could say, well, okay, that's a multiverse. And yet you look to people who are believers in quantum mechanics, for example, quantum theory, who have, out of quantum theory, they would also talk about the multiverse. The reality is, however, is that the quantum multiverse is a very different concept to that of although it's similar to the multiverse of Mahavishnu, it's actually based on something very, very different. The quantum verse is very, very atheistic, because it's basically taking away, it's saying every time there's a different possibility, there's a new universe that is created, ultimately. And there's a lot of, now there's even, I suppose you could describe as being neo-quantum verse theories, where how can there be that many universes if every time there's a different possibility or someone makes a different choice, there's almost like a new universe. All that kind of does make sense if you are interested in connecting particle physics to quantum mechanics and you don't believe in the soul or individual soul of an entity. But even people interested in the quantum multiverse ultimately think, well, perhaps all these different possibilities are there, but somehow it still ends up as one universe. So it's really kind of confusing. Now, here's the question: how does that compare yet with the ancient concept of the multi-universe of Mahavishnu? And I think it's something quite different, because the difference is it's coming from God, it's coming from Lord Vishnu. And in each universe is a Brahmandam, and the head of each universe is a different Lord Brahma. That stuff we know. But it's a very different concept to the quantum multiverse, I have to say. Is it? If you just look at, for example, if you look at count the layers, I think it's in Canto 3, it describes the size of the different elemental layers that cover this Brahmandala, or this 4 billion mile solar system, as you might say. You add the layer of earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, false ego, and you times each layer by 10. You actually get something which is, and also a quote from the Surya Siddhanta, something, I think, the circumference of each unit, and and therefore in the Vedas what they call the Mahatapa. There's only one Mahatapa. There's only one cosmic manifestation at any one time. But the quantum multiverse is actually wrong, because it means there's too many universes. It means every time one atom goes left instead of right throughout the whole of history, each time you're manifesting millions of universes every millisecond. And you've got to take that back to the beginning of the universe. So there's another universe where I didn't say that, I said something else. And there's another universe where I touch the top of my head and my nose, and there's another universe where I don't do that. I mean, it's just too much.
Yeah.
It's just too much. So there are, yeah. So anyway, that's my answer.
Yeah, but within the Mahavishnu universes that are born out of the skin or out of the pores, how does that work with, can the human travel with inter-universe, or does he stay within the same universe?
Okay, good question. My understanding is that it even Lord Brahma
And
was
sorry,
quite.
can the soul travel? Because
Oh, I see. Yeah, but bodies cannot. Bodies cannot. I believe that even Lord Brahmas cannot simply skip from one universe to another, because you have that story where Lord Brahma Lord Brahma tried to trick Lord Krishna, and then afterwards Lord Krishna just showed Lord Brahma many other Lord Brahmas offering their praises to Krishna's lotus feet. And these Lord Brahmas had many more heads, and they were responsible for much larger universes than our Brahma. And our Brahma was quite shocked to see all these other universes. So I don't think, unless your name is Narad Muni or you have some special benediction, I don't think in our bodies or even subtle bodies we can go from one universe to another. However, the soul is quite different. If it is, if let's say for example someone passes away, their body passes away, and the soul of course lives on, the jiva, and if there's no correct body in this universe to accommodate that person's karma and their desire and what they deserve, there's no planet at all or no species that will accommodate that karma, then in this case they may have to go to another universe. But generally, as far as I understand, most jivas, souls would be somewhere, certainly in this universe.
Okay. So does the Vedic philosophy of this multiverses conform to, how some people think now, that right now, if I'm, for example, Devanshi in this universe, in another universe, there's going to be another Devanshi?
Right. Okay. So again, that's an interesting question. So one of the natural questions is, what is in these other universes? What do we know from the Vedas? There isn't a large amount. What we do know, we know that many other universes are larger than this one. We know that the Lord Brahmas, many of them have more heads, as it were, as has 4. So there may be others with millions of heads, much larger meaning. We know there are different planetary systems and levels, just as there are in this universe. We know there are the elements as well, ego and mind and so on. So that information gives us the impression that there must be some similarities there. There must be, and also we also know, as we were talking about earlier, that mankind is made in God's image. This special special category, if you like, of this human-like form is something which is actually not just, it's coming from God, actually, the form of Lord Krishna and Vishnu and Narayan. So, and that's coming from beyond the whole Tattva, the whole cosmic manifestation. So we can conclude that this human-like form also exists quite prominently in other universes. Another difference is that according to the quantum multiverse theory, most universes will be empty. And this is a very good big point here. According to quantum multiverse, most universes would be unpopulated because in most cases, according to probability, life would not exist. Do you see my point? So you'd have billions and billions and billions of empty universes, and we happen to be in one where there's life. You see what I mean? So it's not so exciting really, quantum multiverse. It just means you're dealing with trillions and trillions of empty universes, and then maybe a tiny percentage would be populated. But actually it would still be millions of populated universe because of all the different possibilities that exist within that right now. But there would be an innumerable, unimaginable amount of empty, meaningless universes. Whereas in the Vedas, if each universe has a Lord Brahma, that's a living entity. So that means Lord Brahma, we know that not every Lord Brahma is necessarily a pure devotee. We know that sometimes Lord Vishnu himself has to occupy the role of Lord Brahma in some universes. But my understanding is that, therefore, that most universes, if not all, are populated from the Vedic point of view. So it's a case of acknowledging this whole multiverse thing as something which is a similar thread between quantum multiverse and Maha Vishnu's thing, but it's actually quite different. It's very, very different kettle of fish altogether. And again, as I mentioned, could it be that the modern understanding of the expansion and contraction of the universe is in any way similar to the breathing of the in and out of the Brahmandalas from his pores of his skin? Because that's almost like an expansion and contraction.
Yeah.
And the answer is, who knows? There are some devotees, great devotees, like Danavir Goswami, for example. In fact, to be fair, I've mentioned Sadhaputta Prabhu's, but if you look at, say, some of the works of Danavir Goswami, this is one of his DVDs about the Vedic cosmos. He focuses entirely on the Vedic point of view. And he's not interested in connecting it to modern perception, because he'd say, well, in the future, they may look back at today's theories and think, well, what a load of rubbish that was. You know, do you remember when we believed in the quantum multiverse? Oh, but the Vedic knowledge never changes.
Yeah, modern science is always changing.
It's always changing.
Visible.
So therefore, devotees such as Danavika Swami, but others too, would say just focus on what the Vedas is telling you, and the modern astronomy, you could say, is almost irrelevant. To who cares? However, that's not the line of Sadhaputta Prabhu in books like this, and it's not the line which I been taking either. What I say is, when there are correlations, when there are parallels, let's have a look at it and see what journey it takes us on, and doing that, acknowledging other non-Vedic things, if you like, for example, Bible, Quran, Eric von Daniken, you know, things like that, other works, let's say, and connecting that with the Vedas to create a bigger overall picture is the path I've taken, and it's enabled me to make all these videos.
Yes.